Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining our virtual Bringing Back Main Street Roundtable. My name is Sarah Torreson. I work at the Houston-Galveston Area Council. And before we get started, I want to let you know this meeting is being recorded, and the recording should be available on our website at h-gac.com. And I'll quickly remind everyone, I know we've all been doing Zoom for months and months now, but I'll remind everyone of a couple online meeting tips. First of all, we ask that you mute yourself when you're not speaking. If you're on a phone, you can use *6 to mute and unmute. And then also please turn off your camera when you're not presenting. Later on when we have our roundtable discussion, we encourage you to put your cameras on to discuss, but for the sake of minimizing distractions, we ask you to keep your cameras off. And that's it for online tips. Today we're going to be talking about local food businesses and entrepreneurs, and then the benefits that those provide for your local food economy. And this is our agenda for today. We'll talk more about that in a second, but before we begin, we'd like to introduce the topic for today with a brief video.
When you think about food entrepreneurs, you may think about grocery store or restaurant owners, but also consider the farmer selling her fresh vegetables, homemade baked goods, plants, jams, and cheese at a local market, or the chef who brings his truck to a festival or designated park to sell delicious and often gourmet meals to the community. Strong local food systems boost local economies and improve the quality of life of a community's residents by creating jobs, attracting tourists and foot traffic to downtowns, and providing access to fresh or cooked foods not always available in the community. Strong local food systems create opportunities for customers to purchase food grown and raised by local producers. Farmers markets are a great example. The Houston-Galveston region is peppered with farmers markets, roadside stands, and farm stores. Small and rural downtowns can serve as hubs for these direct-to-consumer markets. Visitors come from out of town to buy local products and celebrate regional agriculture. A farmer's market provides 6 times more social interaction than a grocery store. Strong local food systems and programming can bring both residents and visitors to downtowns to experience diverse cultural cuisines. Festivals with food trucks and food truck parks are great examples. Places in downtowns where people can come together to enjoy meals are invaluable for a community. Food truck parks can become hubs of activities in towns. Foot traffic brings downtowns to life, and visitors will spend their dollars locally at brick and mortar stores. Plus, food truck owners and operators will shop locally at farmers markets and at retail stores for their personal and business needs. Every town has food entrepreneurs. How can cities encourage and support these business owners? Local governments can revisit and adjust their ordinances to assist mobile food vendors and farmers markets. Communities can also market these food systems to residents through websites and utility bill mailers, and can include these events as community destinations in tourism outreach. Cities can also get more actively involved. Typically, volunteers, community organizations, and vendors organize and coordinate farmers markets, festivals, and food truck parks. But local governments can play a crucial role in supporting or even operating local markets, events, and venues. Whether it's a farmer's market, a food truck park, or another event focusing on local foods, food systems fuel local economies and enhance our quality of life. Local governments can support these systems and create opportunities in their communities.
All right, so that video sort of did some introductions for me, but today we're going to be hearing from Mayor Gretchen Fagan and other representatives of the City of Tomball, the Tomball Farmers Market, about their farmers market and food truck park, and also about food events and festivals that can have a big economic impact in your towns. And then after that, we really encourage everyone to participate in a discussion about what you are doing in your town that might inspire others, how you're challenged, really anything that we'd like to talk about today. So with that, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Gretchen Fagan is the mayor of Tomball and has been mayor since 2007. She also has the distinction of opening Tomball's own food truck park with her husband in 2017. Mayor Fagan, I'll turn it over to you if you'd like to share your screen, and we look forward to hearing from you today. And I think you're on mute if you'd like to just unmute. Yep, got it.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right, well, thanks very much, Sarah. And we will just go ahead and get started. And I was telling Sarah yesterday how this is a little odd having everything online. So if you're gonna go to sleep, please make sure that you have another thing up so I don't see you napping. And we will just go ahead and get started. All right, so first of all, she asked me to talk about a little bit about Tomball. Tomball is a town. We actually think that Houston's a suburb of us. Established about 110 years ago. And 403 Eats is the only food truck park that we have in the city of Tomball. And my husband and I, Mike, opened that in 2017. She also asked that I could talk a little bit about Tomball. And I thought what might be good is to show this little video that I had. It's about 2 minutes long, and just highlight some of the people of Tomball and kind of how things were during COVID when we couldn't get out and see each other as much. So let me see if I can get that started for you. All right, now we'd like to just talk a little bit about how we started 403 Eats. Basically, we had purchased some land near our insurance office on East Main Street in Tomball, Texas. Really not with any idea of what we were going to do, but we knew that we wanted to do something. The city of Tomball about that time had very, very strict food truck requirements and things that you had to do to have a food truck in the city of Tomball. And I had talked to the city council a few years earlier and said, you know, I just would like to know that if somebody has an idea that is a viable idea and it's a good concept, I just want to make sure that we keep an open mind so we can look at that. And so city council agreed that if anything came up, they would start looking at it. So one of the very first things we did is we had the food truck festival, and there was some mention of food truck festivals in the opening there. And so I know this is a food truck festival, but I really just had to show you the picture of the horse drinking out of our fountain, but you can see the food trucks in the background. Anyway, that was a huge success, had about 9,000 people attend. And not only was it fun and it was exciting to see the food trucks, but it kind of let the people of Tomball have an idea of what to expect from food trucks, because our parents didn't know what food trucks were, and they didn't think that was something they wanted to happen. So it let our city council, city staff, like I said, even the citizens, to know what to expect in the future. And so some of the things that we had to do, and again mentioned earlier, we had to amend our zoning ordinance. First of all, we didn't allow food trucks in the city, and we had no zone for food truck parks. So Mike and I approached the city. We talked to them about it, and actually created an entire zone just for food truck parks. So if you want to have a food truck in the city of Tomball, then you need to go to a food truck park, and there's actually a place that you can do that now. We do have other trucks that can come into town, but they can't stay more than 4 hours in one place. I'm sure like many cities do. So once we created the zone, then we had to go to Florida Star Planning and Zoning Commission for approval, and then the city council. And so that, being the mayor, was a little different because I had to actually recuse myself and wasn't allowed to participate in any of the conversation. So I just sat in the audience and watched. So once we did that, then we had to go back and do a conditional use permit. And the part of town that we're in is actually Old Town mixed use. And so retail, restaurants, a brewery, different places are allowed to be in Old Town mixed use. And we could do that, but we just needed the conditional use permit for the actual food truck park itself. So that took a little bit of time, but again, went to planning and zoning and went to the city council to get all of that approved. And during all that time, we worked very closely with all the city staff who they did research. They went to see other food truck parks in other cities. And a lot of people really kind of got up to speed on what it was. After that, we had to amend the vendor guidelines, because the guidelines that we had, the food trucks fell under, and probably not intentionally, but it just happened over the years, they got lumped into the same category as the people selling magazines door to door. And so it had some things where every single person who worked on a truck would need to be approved by the city. We would need to know that they were healthy enough to work. And so it really didn't make sense. And again, it wasn't by design. It was just the fact that that's just kind of how it evolved, and Tomball didn't jump into food trucks earlier. So then after that, we had to get all our permits and all our inspections, which you would think would be easy, but actually, since I'm the mayor, we did everything, of course, above and beyond. We made sure that everything was taken care of. Mike actually fired one of our subcontractors for putting in plumbing without a permit. And so we had to get that quickly corrected, but everything went A-okay. We got it all done in record time. One of the biggest hurdles was the Harris County Health Department. Not that the health department itself was a hurdle, but we needed to be approved as a commissary. And a commissary, in normal terms, a commissary to me is a place that, like an army base that you go to. But a commissary actually means that the food trucks don't have to leave here. So we have 7 trucks here right now, and none of them ever have to leave the property, because we actually have them set up where they have their fresh water, and then they also have their gray water, their wastewater. We have them set up with electricity, and they don't need to leave. Every other food truck in Harris County that is not in an approved food truck park, and we're the only approved food truck park that's also a commissary, those trucks have to drive into Houston every night. So wherever they are, if they finish at midnight, then they have to pack everything up, go to a commissary in Houston. There may be 6 or 7 of them all over the place. Then they have to go back to where they're going to set up the next day and get ready. So that was really key in getting this approved, because we wanted to make sure that our trucks didn't need to leave. And it's almost impossible for them to leave every night. We have all food trailers right now, no actual trucks. And my husband actually rents a little tow truck and moves them all around. It's very impressive. You should come watch it someday when we are moving people around. Something else that we had to do was go through the TCEQ and, of course, the City of Tomball for any of our wastewater, rainwater. One of the big obstacles was, how do we get rid of our gray water, but it can't go into the ditches? We can't put soapy water into the ditches. So it all has to go through all of our plumbing here that we put in. We put in a 1,000-gallon grease trap. So every truck is connected to that grease trap, and all of their gray water goes through that and goes into the city sewer. Now, on the other hand, we couldn't have rainwater getting into the sewer because that can cause problems with too much water in the sewer system. So we actually came up with an idea on how we would get that done. We have a grate that we open and close whenever we need to. And then we did excuse me, along with all the plumbing, electrical. How do you hook up electricity for 7 food trucks and an indoor area, which is inside we have a bar, we have seating, we have air conditioning, we have TVs, we have 1,000 square foot porch, and then all of the trucks kind of are in a courtyard out front. So what we did is basically we set it up like an RV park where everybody has their own connections right at their food truck. And then of course you have to get insurance, and Mike and I are also insurance agents, but getting insurance on a food truck park was a little tricky because people really didn't know what the concept was. And so we had to get with our companies to make sure that we could get all that taken care of. And just a little bit about the process. Here on the left, this photo just shows as we were starting the dirt work. This was an old building. It was a 100-year-old house. We actually have the original front door. Anything that we could keep that was original, we did. And so this is where we've already started. We've put on a new roof at this point. We've started the deck that goes all the way around 2 sides. And then the next one that says coming soon, now you can see we've added landscaping. We've done the concrete work. We've finished out the deck. We've painted and that kind of stuff. And then we had our grand opening in June of 2017, which was pretty exciting because a lot of the people that you see in this picture are other business owners. They're local mom and pop people that came. Tejas Chocolate was here. Jane and John Doe Bakery was here. The Empty Glass was here. Just everybody who was in business just came out to support it. So a lot of people from the chamber and that sort of thing. So it was exciting to see. So we opened a brand new business in June, and then we had Hurricane Harvey hit. And as you can see, it didn't really slow us down too much. The day that Harvey was supposed to hit was a Saturday. All of the trucks closed. We didn't have any open because the trucks didn't really know what to expect. Of course, we knew it was Tomball, so we'd be fine. And as you can see on the left, we actually opened on that day, and we actually renamed the park that day to 4-3 Drinks, and we sold $3 margaritas. And we were here all day playing bingo, playing trivia, just having fun with the people of Tomball because they knew that the hurricane was coming and they were going to have to, be inside. And as you can see, then next to it, we actually even called Papa John's and had pizza delivered for all of our customers that were here. And then again, here we are, brand new in business, and we had snow, we had ice, we had the wettest winter in history, and then we had the coldest winter in history. And of course, that was until this year when we have now actually had the coldest winter in history. But again, we made it through that. We were closed a couple of days for no water, no electricity, but everything came out great. Nothing happened to any of the trucks, and we just kept going as soon as we were able to open again. And so we've really had a great time being part of the community. And that's really a lot of why we did this, is we felt that this would be good for the city of Tomball. Tomball has never had anything like this, and it's become such a great family gathering place that it's really, really exciting. And you can see from the photos here, we have Girl Scouts that come out during cookie season, and they set up a booth on Sunday afternoons and sell Girl Scout cookies. The bottom photo is the family that came out for pictures with Santa, and you can see they all came in their pajamas, which is pretty fun. And next we've got we do karaoke, we do live music, we have bingo. So we have a lot of activities that are going on, and you can see on the left that's part of our porch there behind the girl that was calling bingo that night. Over on the upper right-hand corner, we have a realtor, the one in the red shirt. She actually sponsors bingo sometimes. She sponsors karaoke, and this was actually a karaoke contest. One thing that we recently did that was very fun, again with our friend here, the realtor, we actually had a wiener dog race and raised about $550 for abandoned animal rescue. So we're planning on doing that twice a year, again, just to give back to the community. Other things that we do is we're in with some of the foodie groups, and we give back to charity. We give to the local food banks and that sort of things. All the local businesses come together to do that. Then, of course, we do have some fabulous food. And okay, this burger down in the right-hand corner is a Venezuelan burger and has not just a hamburger, but it has ham, shoestring potatoes, I think an egg. There's all kinds of stuff on it. And so that definitely gets people coming back. We're dog friendly and found that that has really made a big impression on people. People like to be able to bring their pets. And so down in the right-hand corner is our dog, Dexter. Dexter's been here since the beginning when we opened. He's usually here most days. He actually now owns one of the food trucks. It's called Dexter Dogs. So if you want to come get a hot dog from Dexter, they're here every day of the week, except Tuesday when we're closed. And the reason for that is because all the other restaurants are closed on Mondays. So we decided to be open on Monday and closed on Tuesdays. We do Thanksgiving and we do Christmas here. Again, just kind of a community event where Mike and I actually make an entire turkey dinner at home, bring it all here, put it out, and everybody just kind of does potluck. If you want to bring something, you can. If you don't, just come eat with us and have fun. It's been very neat because we've seen our employees come for this, our employees' families come, people from off the street that are driving by and they see cars here. So they stop in, and it just, again, very, very community oriented. We also have done engagements, weddings, and the couple right there in the middle. I videotaped him on Facebook Live while he proposed to his wife, and I told him I hoped that it was going to go well because he was on Facebook Live. That was pretty neat, and they now here all the time with their baby, and it's just neat. The one on the left is the family who's been here for years. Her first date was here with her now husband. They got engaged here. He proposed to her. A lot of fun things that are going on. Then of course you can see the lower right hand corner was one of the first weddings we did during COVID. So that's why you see the masks on that one. We do youth groups in schools and families. We've had actually Concordia High School did their homecoming here. What they did is they actually set up a movie night in the parking lot. So everybody was spaced properly and brought all the kids over to 403 on hay rides, dropped them off. And we actually had tickets so they could go and get food at each truck. They could come in and grab a soda. And then the school just came in and paid us on Monday morning. So it was very neat. Got, again, a youth group to the right, holding service. We have Santa. We have all kinds of fun things. And so when COVID came, we didn't just survive, but we actually thrived. A lot of interesting things that happened, but in a food truck park, being a large area of outdoor seating, people seemed to feel very comfortable here very early on. We would have a lot of people that would come and just get their food to go because they couldn't eat here, of course. That was the rule at the time. We started selling gallons of margaritas. You can see this gentleman came and obviously got a 6-pack of beer and 2 gallons of margaritas to take home to his family. And so that's something that was very amazing. And the people of Tomball came out during COVID because they wanted to help support local. They wanted to support mom and pops. And it was exciting to see. And now one of the things that we talked about with Sarah when we were starting this and putting it together, she wanted to know what it's done for the economy, what it's done for businesses. Well, Tiki Shaved Ice, which is over here on the right, the gentleman there in the blue shirt, he and his wife just bought land right behind 403 Eats, and they're going to open their business there. That's where they're going to store their trucks. They have several of these shaved ice trucks. They're going to store the trucks, store their products, and it's going to be their office. So that has worked for them very, very well. Tacos Olé on the right, they actually left, opened their own brick and mortar, and then recently moved up north to be near family. And they're actually going to open their own food truck park. Yes, based on us. They said they stole our idea. But again, pretty exciting to see people that you grew with and you worked with at the beginning, going on to do bigger and better things. Oh, sorry, I got one ahead. And over here on the right, this is Miguel. He's with Senior Burrito. Miguel is from San Diego, so you can tell he's very confused right there by the snow. He doesn't know what's happening. And then on the right is Dracula's Chimney Cakes. Gabriel's from Romania, and he does this traditional chimney cake. And that is actually the truck that you see there is a mobile truck that he does take around. Actually, during COVID, he purchased a second truck. So he has one that's stationary here at 4-3 and another one that goes around from place to place, apartments, breweries, anywhere that might need a food truck. And what's very interesting is these two guys, Miguel and Gabriel, have actually teamed together, and they will be opening their own brick and mortar restaurant in about 2 months. But they will be leaving their food trucks here, so don't worry, you can still come get burritos and chimney cakes. We'll have them. And just to mention, our floors are so clean, you can eat off them. That's our manager, Tracy, cleaning. And Sarah wanted to know what we learned during all this. And so, Sarah, I just put this slide in for you because I wanted to let you know that I did learn that you cannot wash rags that have grease on them, wash them, dry them, put them into a laundry bag, and then put them into your car because that causes spontaneous combustion and your rags will catch fire. So that was a big learning experience for us. And as Mike mentioned early, when y'all were, if those of you who were in early, that the next event that we're going to do is going to be a music venue. So in the bottom right of this picture is the building at 403. That's the indoor where we have the bar, seating, the patio that wraps around it. You can see all the concrete where all the tables are, the picnic tables, play areas for the kids. And then behind the fence where you see dirt, we purchased all that property. It's about an acre, and we're going to be expanding into music and events, whatever people may want to do. And so we're actually calling that one Events Behind the Fence. That will be under construction very shortly, we hope. And with that, that is my presentation. I think, yes, I did. Got out just in time. So let me see. Sarah, do you want to come back?
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm back, yes. Thank you, Mayor Fagan. That was a great introduction to Tomball, and then also thank you for sharing the story of 403 Eats. Good tip on the rags.
Very good.
And so, yeah, if anyone has any questions, I should have said this at the top, but you can put your questions in the chat and we can read those out loud. Or if you'd like to ask your question live, you can raise your hand and we will see you and call on you. And I see we have one in the chat right now. How large is the current property?
The current property, oh my goodness, I know my husband's on the other line. I think where the truck park itself is right now, what the picture that you saw, we're about a quarter of an acre. And it's basically 4 city blocks. So it's 100 feet by 120 feet deep. And then behind what we just bought is about an acre where we're going to do the music venue.
All right, another question. Does the commissary allow for other food trucks to be serviced or only the food trucks stationed there?
We do also allow outside trucks to come in, but we have very, very few because we, of course, don't want to be here all night with 1,000 trucks dumping. But yes, you can contact us if you're in the area and you do need to use the commissary. We can do that. We do have contracts with probably about 5 or 6, and they're all people we know, people that we know really well. And so yes, we can do both.
Great. We have some congratulations on the success of your food truck. And then 2 more questions. How do you handle parking for customers?
Okay, so we actually have 9 parking spots, but we work with our neighbors across the street, down the street. People are allowed to park in those parking lots. And then we own the Farmers Insurance Agency next door and a house on the other side of that. So we have parking that is not actually here, but we built steps so you can actually walk from our insurance agency across the back and up onto the porch. And so we do have plenty of parking. We've had people park in the front yard of the Farmers Insurance Agency, just wherever you can find. And most people just seem to drive down the street, park, start walking.
Another question, did the city help with economic development funds for local businesses?
Yes. The City of Tomball's Economic Development Corporation has what they call the Business Improvement Grant Program. So we bought this building. It was an old house, and they can do up to $10,000 a year for property improvements. They can do $10,000 for landscaping. They can do $10,000 for various things. It's all on the outside. That grant does not allow you to do any interior, but yes, they did help us with a lot of that. When we actually now have artificial grass. We had real grass to begin with, and that didn't last very long because of all the kids playing on it. So when we put in the artificial turf, about 6 months after we opened, they came back and helped with that also.
Great. A couple more, lots of questions. This is great. Have other businesses, especially non-food, experienced any positive impacts? Any relationship in operating hours between the park and other businesses?
Yes, I would think that they do. We have a windshield place across the street from us that when people are getting their windshields done, they come over here, and it gives somebody a place to come for 2 or 3 hours while that's happening. We have automotive hot rod shop down the street. Same, the customers come here and they leave their trucks down there. The shop right across from us. Again, the relationship with them, with the parking, because they have a good sized parking lot. They actually let us use their parking lot during COVID. We didn't do it. Customers did. Customers came and put tables and chairs in the parking lot across the street so they could eat crawfish with their families, and we could still wait on them across the street, not even on our property. But yes, there's been very good impacts because we are also on the east side of the tracks here in Tomball, and there wasn't much here. We're the first restaurant to actually open on the east side.
All right. Did you get any pushback from established businesses?
No, not at all. Everybody was very, very encouraging. I think that most of our local businesses and really anybody that's in business, if you think about it, you know that the more business that's coming to town for whatever reason, the better it is for everyone. And so everybody was very, very supportive. If we needed help with something, if there were any questions that we had, people were always there to help us along the way.
Great. All right, I missed one. Does your city have a required customer parking policy?
We do. And I think ours, the 9 parking spots that we have are based on, oh, maybe we have 10. Anyway, it's based on, I think, the occupancy. I don't know. My husband hasn't texted me to tell me I'm wrong on that, but I think it was either the number of food trucks we have or how many people we could have inside. But yes, we do have requirement for parking.
All right. We've got one from your husband in the chat. Another question is, what was your biggest obstacle to overcome?
Really, I think, and it wasn't really an obstacle, but it was the process of working with the health department, working with TCEQ, working with the City of Tomball, because it was a lot of moving parts. And my husband, Mike, did a fantastic job in coordinating all of that. The Harris County Health Department actually approved us for opening on June 1st, 2017, which was our opening day. And that's the day that we passed our final inspection. The girl that we had worked with at the health department had been in some foreign country the week before. I didn't know it, so I'm texting her. I didn't know she was on vacation, but she was texting me back 2 and 3 and 4 times a day from Cancun or wherever she was to make sure that we had everything we needed. The health department actually went so over and above. They came here the day that we poured concrete, sat on the porch with us. We had, of course, a food truck and probably had about 50 people show up just to watch the concrete get poured and then watch it dry and drink mimosas. But the health department was here that day too. So that would be the biggest obstacle, would be just working through all that, but it really wasn't because everybody was so helpful.
All right, and then one more for now. What did the recruitment process for food trucks look like?
It was at the beginning, we had no idea where we were going to find food trucks. once it started getting posted on Facebook and people started talking about it, we reached out to a couple, a food truck festival or a German festival, places where we had food trucks. I would talk to the trucks and ask, what is it that you need? And if you were to go to a food truck park, kind of what would that look like? And right now, all of our trucks are on 1-year leases. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them have recently signed up. Some are in their second, some are in their third year. So we don't have a lot of turnover at all. And we actually have a waiting list of people who want to come in.
That's great. And then with the opening of your park, has the city seen an increase or decrease of standalone food trucks in the city?
We have actually seen, trying to think, I would say less, but we really didn't have food trucks before. So that's hard to say because we just didn't have food trucks. The ordinances were very, very tight on what you could do to be a food truck. You couldn't just park your truck at the Texaco and leave it there with the picnic table. But I would assume, our farmers market always has a food truck. All of our festivals have food trucks. I do know when businesses open, they'll call and ask for food trucks. So I would think that it's actually helped even the standalone ones here in town.
Great. Okay, we have 2 more and then that'll be the end. I know there's lots of good questions, but we will have time at the end of our presentations to have our roundtable discussion. We can ask more questions. So the first one is, do you have any data on community impact, increase of revenue to other businesses, even non-food related?
We don't actually have any data on that. I do know our sales tax dollars are up in the city of Tomball. Of course, that's probably, well, no, I'm wrong. That is not everywhere. A lot of places, especially during COVID, did not have any increases. And we held good during COVID. We actually were up 20% in our sales last year. And so I would think other businesses, again, not that we have any hard data on it, but just people telling us that people came to town here and they saw the antique store across the street. So they wanted to go shop there. Yeah. So I think we do have an increase, but I can't put any dollar figures to it.
And then the last question for now is, how did you decide which food trucks would be allowed? Did you select food trucks with different types of food?
Absolutely. That's exactly what we did. We have a burrito truck. We have a Venezuelan truck. We have a truck that sells biscuits, different kind of sandwiches on biscuits. We have a hot dog truck. We have a Peruvian truck. And we have the Dracula's chimney cakes that I mentioned. We have somebody who just opened up that sells chicken salads, and that kind of thing. So yes, we made sure that we had a very diverse group of trucks. We didn't want to have 6 taco trucks. And then actually, I see part of that question is, how did we decide which are allowed? A lot of it had to do with the reputation. One of the first ones we had was Cousin's Maine Lobster, somebody who was pretty well known. And they were here for the first year. And we look at the people, we meet the people, and just decide who we want to be part of our family.
Great. Thank you all for your questions, and Mayor Fagan for your wonderful responses. Like I said, we can talk more about the food truck park later, but for now, I'd like to introduce Amanda Kelly, Brandy McCrill, and Michelle Milke with the Tomball Farmers Market. I see you've already got your presentation up, so I'll turn it over to you.
Hey everybody, good morning. My name's Amanda Kelly, and for the last 2 years, I have been the market manager for Tomball Farmers Market. I've also served our market in various other roles off and on for the last 6 years. I have a background in corporate restaurant training, restructuring, and marketing experience with an emphasis in website development, local involvement, and later creating social media presences for businesses. Today, I wanted to tell you a little bit about our farmers market. Tomball Farmers Market premiered in 2008 in a little grass area right off of Main Street in the heart of downtown Tomball, where we hosted about 6 vendors once a month. By 2014, we had grown to over 30 vendors every weekend, half of whom were local farmers. We outgrew the grass lot area quickly, so we worked with the City of Tomball to move to an adjacent lot where we have continued to grow as a community. Our foot traffic through the market has grown to where Tomball Farmers Market can now sustain up to 76 vendors every Saturday, including we will be adding a few food trucks here in the next couple of weeks. Our location has played an incredibly powerful role in our market success and the success of Old Town Tomball area businesses. Our location has provided plenty of traffic visibility, is easily accessible. It's within walking distance to area local restaurants and businesses. We also have bicycle parking, and we're really fortunate that we also have the Tomball Depot with a splash pad and a green space area right behind us, and that also has public restrooms as well. One of the things that made Tomball Farmers Market a success is our commitment to being a truly local farmers market. And what we mean by this is that all of our farmers, producers, and artisans must make it, grow it, craft it, prepare it, all within 150 miles of Tomball. So we manage this by requiring this for all of our vendors. And we also keep our percentages at 51%. That way that we can be classified with the Harris County Public Health as a true farmers market. And we have percentages in each vendor category that we review often to make sure that we are setting our vendors up for success so that not one category has a true monopoly. And this has also allowed us a great ability to be able to feature fill-in vendors on weekly and monthly instead of having huge long wait lists of people waiting to get into our market. We believe very strongly that the integrity of our organization and our vendors is incredibly important. Because of this, our board of directors has been strictly made up of members of the community. This includes a local resident, a local farmer, a local real estate agent, a CPA, and our board president, who will speak here in a little while, as part of her personal business, works with local farmers weekly all around Houston. As market manager, I meet with our vendor committee every 2 months, and we go through all of the applications that have been submitted during that time to really vet them and make sure that they are truly locally owned and truly actually make their products. We don't do any franchises or anything like that. And we also look at any of our current vendors who might want to add products to their line to make sure that we are keeping those percentages that we have for each classification within the guidelines that we have set. Finally, we have a handbook that we made that we found that was really important for us to have a standard process and a way for the vendors to go back and say, what are our rules and regulations? And we review that once a year as the vendor committee, and then we submit that to our board for them to vote on for the following year. This really gives us the ability to be consistent in making decisions that are in the best interest of our market and our community as a whole. All this has played a great part in developing a structured system that gives our local farmers and small businesses the tools and resources they need to get their businesses off the ground. We keep up with all the current legislation and county health code requirements so that we can set up our farmers and our vendors up for success, because this can be a very daunting task. We strive to be an advocate for our local farmers and help support them while they grow. It's really exciting that over the years, several of our vendors have outgrown our little market and have moved on to brick and mortar businesses in Tomball. And I want to talk about the pandemic a minute. I know Mayor Fagan brought it up a few minutes ago. COVID was really hard on everybody, especially small businesses. During COVID, we had to think outside of the box and find ways that we could help our vendors and our farmers still be able to put food on their tables and have a roof over their head. So we decided to create a second Facebook page that would directly connect our patrons to our vendors so that they could have a safe way to meet up and connect with each other to still get locally sourced food and produce and meats and baked goods and all that kind of thing. This was incredibly important and saved so many of our small businesses and kept them from going under during this time period. And during this time period, with having that Facebook page, it allowed a lot of our vendors to develop delivery services, and they did door drop-offs and local pickups. And this has become such a popular thing that many of our vendors have continued to offer this service to our community in the wake of the pandemic. So due to our overall growth, I would say in the last, since I started about two years ago, our foot traffic was probably around 1,700 to 2,300 on a really good weekend. Now we consistently have numbers between 4,000 and 5,000 pretty much weekly. I know for Halloween and for Christmas, those numbers, our foot traffic was more around the 7,200 range, which is an absolute testament to our vendors and their products and our farmers. And it's just, our farmers are at the heart of everything that we do. So, but with this involvement and with our foot track, we have been able to collaborate with organizations in our community and within Harris County. We are working with the City of Tomball currently to create a city garden that will be utilized for our senior citizens, local schools, rehabilitation groups, and our displaced citizens. Tomball Farmers Market and the Tomball Area Chamber of Commerce are working together to put together a Tomball Sip, Stroll, Shop, and Stay weekend campaign in the near future. We're also working on a plan with Harris County Precinct 4 Community Outreach to get involved with our local area restaurants in a continuing education program on how local restaurants can source their product, their produce and their meats. And this, we're hoping that this will help them utilize our farmers and kind of educating them on why it's important to do so and how it can grow their restaurant footprint as well. We've got a lot of people who currently right now do the whole farm to table kind of restaurants, and we want to kind of grow on that. And we're also excited to be partnering with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension and the Harris County Precinct 4 Community Outreach on multiple products. One of these products is called Battleground to Breaking Ground, which is a project for our local veterans to have a veterans farm right here in Tomball. And we're also working with these groups to come to our market to bring agricultural, cooking, and educational workshops along with other events weekly at our market to help get the word out and just to increase community involvement overall. Tomball Farmers Market is looking forward to doing more with our community and providing more community outreach for our small businesses. We are incredibly passionate about being an advocate for our local farmers by providing them more resources and opportunities for growth. Our future looks really bright for our Tomball Farmers Market and our Old Town Tomball as we continue to help bring back Main Street. Our board president, Brandy McGrill, would like to talk to you all more about our local farmers as they are truly the heart of our market in Old Town Tomball. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Amanda, and thank you, everyone, for listening to us today and hearing all about our market. We're very excited to talk about the Tomball Farmers Market any chance we get. So thank you so much for everyone being here today. So I am Brandy McGrill. I am the Tomball Farmers Market president. I have been in my role coming on just at 3.5 years now. I was drawn to the Tomball Farmers Market and I was asked to serve on their board because my husband and I founded a little vegetable co-op CSA hybrid called the Farm to Kitchen Collective in July of 2015. We didn't really have very many options in the Cypress area where I currently live, other than going to the market. And on the weekend, that was just a little bit challenging for us to get to because of our location. So I thought, how can we bring fresh food to the community? How can we share our love and passion for the farmers at the farmers market and local markets around Houston without having the obligation of the weekend? So we created this little box to where everybody it makes fast food, vegetables kind of like fast food. People just grab a box, it's very affordable. And it was all based upon my experience of going to the farmers market and shopping myself. I place an emphasis on plant-forward food using local ingredients. I have multiple e-cookbooks, I teach classes, and I am proud to say that we have served thousands in the Cypress and surrounding area and been very large advocates for small farmers and artisans and sharing that excitement and infecting other people with that excitement as well. I'm also a community philanthropist. I'm very actively involved in multiple community organizations, one of those being 100 Women Who Care Cy-Fair. And I also serve on the board of the Cy-Fair Women's Network and the Federation of Houston and Professional Women. So these are just kind of a little bit of an overview of what I do and the brands that I represent. So let's talk a little bit about community roots. So before 1850, Tomball was the site of a very large farming community due to a land grant that was given to William Hurd in 1838. So it's really exciting now to see, over 150 years later, how far the Tomball community has come. And this land grant being issued was really how, the roots kind of got started, the farming roots in Tomball got started. Farmers were attracted to this area because of the fresh water and the beautiful pine trees and the favorable climate. Today, the Tomball Farmers Market hosts 26 farmers within 150 miles of Main Street. And another important thing that Amanda mentioned earlier, we are a true farmers market because we dedicate ourselves to this 51% farmer ratio to 49% other businesses and small businesses that we support. So here's just a little bit of an overview of our farmers and how our market is set up. To be considered a farmer, you actually grow the product yourself. As Amanda mentioned earlier, there are on-site inspections initially to approve an application, and then there are also ongoing inspections as well. So again, this is an overview of the rest of our farmers, and then we really get into our cottage food vendors. Cottage food vendors are also inspected as well, and they have to have all of the proper paperwork. One of the great things that Amanda does is she not only manages, the market itself, but she manages with the farmers, the cottage food vendors, and the prepared commercial food vendors, what laws, regulations, and licensing we need to have. One thing, if you look over here, all of these photos that Amanda inserted are from our actual farmers market. How good that bagel looks. So a prepared commercial food vendor is someone that's actually preparing their food in a commercial kitchen. And again, that's another set of legalities that Amanda keeps people abreast upon. Okay. One of the things that I'm really proud to say that the Tomball Farmers Market has done for the city of Tomball is in the tourism department. Running statistics, we have realized that we attract over 75% of our shoppers from outside of the Tomball Farmers Market. Now, how do we do that? Well, number one, Tomball has become known as a top foodie destination with cult followings. Most of our vendors are very active on social media. We too are very active on social media. Amanda mentioned the private group, but we also have a presence with a public group. And it has really caught on like wildfire. We have people that come to the market and will tag that they're there. And really, thanks to social media, we have become kind of a destination for those things. So we have in July 6th of 2001, we were presented in the food and culture section of the Houston Chronicle as one of the premier markets in the Houston area. And another thing that we're very proud of, I don't know if anyone has heard of Edible Houston, but Edible Houston is a magazine that's distributed all across the Houston area to local farmers markets and to specific artisans and restaurants that really support our type of clientele. We were awarded Local Hero Awards in 2017 for our farmers market, 2019 for our farmers market. Jane Wild, which is one of our chefs that originally owned Jane and John Doe, she started at the farmers market, moved into a brick and mortar, and now she's an executive chef with her own brand in the city, doing very well. She was awarded top chef. In 2019, we also had Rollin' Local, which was our food truck that was on site at the Tomball Farmers Market on Saturdays, awarded as local hero for food truck. In 2019, Carolyn's Kitchen was also acknowledged as specialty shop, and Three Sister Farms she sits as the chair of our vendor committee. She was also mentioned as top farm. One of the great things about this magazine is they featured a day trip section on June 14th of 2019, and it was titled A Saturday in Tomball, Full of Food and Fun. They came to the market, highlighted a few of the vendors, but then they also went around to the local antique shops, to the train station, to all of the wonderful little things that we have on Main Street that does attract people to that area. So we're very proud to be part of the City of Tomball and really helping the businesses to grow. So here is also an overview, in addition to Amanda having to manage all of the licensing and keeping up with all of the changes with the farmers, with the cottage food vendors, with the commercial prepared vendors. We also have a small business section as well. And this is a little bit of a snapshot of the people that contribute each week there. So Michelle Milke is our Tomball Farmer Community Liaison. She's a local real estate agent where she serves the entire Gulf Coast from Tomball to Galveston. She lived in Tomball for over a decade and visited the Tomball Farmers Market since pretty much its date of inception. She joined us on the board about 2 years ago because of her perception of, again, we want to keep that community member. We want to keep those fresh eyes on the market to see how we continually can grow and improve. So a little bit about Michelle. Michelle really focuses on the small business portion and really how to draw new people to the Tomball area. All of these businesses got started at our small town Tomball Farmers Market on Main Street, and these businesses have helped to grow into the community that we are today. Again, I mentioned Jane Wild of Jane and John Doe. I've mentioned Carolyn's Kitchen. Jersey Bagels actually started out in their kitchen, a little bitty, tiny, very hot kitchen. They came to the Tomball Farmers Market and were with us for some time. They were able to go on to get their brick and mortar as well. Pain Train Salsa has a brick and mortar. I'm sure everyone knows about Tejas Chocolate and Barbecue. They've been featured in Texas Monthly Magazine. They have been all over the news in Houston, but Tejas Chocolate and Barbecue got their start at the Tomball Farmers Market as well. Bear Barbecue, and then I can't see the last one down there. I'm so bad. Let me see if I can move this. Amanda, can you chime in? Thirsty Bead Meadery, excuse me. We've got Thirsty Bead Meadery. They actually started as BZ Honey, simply pulling fresh honey from all around the Tomball and surrounding areas, and now they've advanced into a meadery. And then of course we have Callie's Kitchen as well. So all of these businesses started as very small booths at the Tomball Farmers Market and then have worked their way into brick and mortar simply because of the relationship that they have in the community. We give them a spot that they can rent to really be able to grow their own roots and to be able to help them launch their businesses and really see their dreams, acknowledge their dreams. So making Tomball Farmers Market, a little bit of an impact in the Tomball Farmers community. Our farmers market has grown exponentially since its inception, and it's created some really unique opportunities for our vendors to become brick and mortar restaurants and businesses, again, allowing us to bring back Main Street. We have Steampunk Juice, who actually houses themselves in a nonprofit right there called the Renewal Center on Main Street as well. And everything, again, is really just centered around this concept of small town and small community. Today, the Old Town Tomball area has a very highly sought out destination to live, and homes don't stay on the market for very long, and they're mostly going for higher than an asking price. So Tomball's now gotten this reputation for being a foodie destination, a shopping destination, and if you've ever visited Old Town Tomball, you will definitely know why. So one of the focuses, again, that the Tomball Farmers Market is one of our cornerstones is building community. For those that don't qualify as a vendor but still want to connect with the community, we have multiple different booth options for community involvement. We keep that booth open for nonprofits, for community services, and for educational booths. Recently, we did a cooking demonstration that was incredibly successful, teaching people very simply how to buy from the farmers market and use really high quality ingredients to introduce into their own homes. From volunteering, opportunities, agricultural education, petting zoos, we pass out water. Again, we talked about the demonstrations. Really, the Tomball Farmers Market is not just a market. We're not just supporting small farmers. We're not just supporting small businesses. We're really giving the community the opportunity to come together and really learn. Some of the volunteers that we have now have been on part of outreach efforts from the market team to actually go out to Lone Star, I think it's called the STAR program, all of these different little schools and high schools in the area to do on-site presentations. And these kids are really getting involved and really wanting to know where their food is coming from and how they can serve in their community as a volunteer. So that's really all that I have for you today. Here's information on how to get in touch with Amanda, myself, or Michelle Milke. Oops, it looks like that wasn't fixed, but I can correct that. So that's all I have for today. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you so much, Amanda and Brandy. Great overview. And we already do have some questions in the chat. Feel free to add other questions as they come to you. The first one is, are the locations of the farmers markets ever chosen to be in proximity to areas considered as food deserts? Are the farmers markets used to help address community access to food? And maybe you can answer, I know that your farmers market is in a set location, but maybe when you were picking the location, or answer the question about community food access.
So one of the things that is very important to the Tomball Farmers Market, you know, the Tomball Farmers Market is located again on Main Street in Tomball. That location was a selected location for the convenience of the people in the area. And Tomball itself is not obviously considered a food desert. I personally would love the opportunity to, you know, expand that as piece of the program. I do know a lot of the farmers in the area. Soul to Soil is actually out, not Soul to Soil, Sown and Grown. She's actually out in Cashmere Gardens outside. She runs a farm alongside LBJ. So I have seen the work that they've done in the community, and there's so much to do, and there's so many parts and pieces that it takes all of us to kind of come together. So to answer your question there, we don't necessarily serve a food desert. While we are, you know, we do collaborate with people that do support those food deserts. Tomball Farmers Market, most of our focus is really in our community itself. Team is Tomball Emergency Assistance Ministries, and they do have a food bank there. We have looked in the past at forming an entire nonprofit around giving this food back to the community, but at this point in time, those are not in our immediate plans. What is in our immediate plans are the community gardens. Amanda has really sat down and tackled this handbook on what it's going to look like for it to be affordable for the veteran project and the community garden project, and how it can be made affordable to people who might not be in a position to be able to shop a Tomball Farmers Market. And we're actually planning to give them a space where they can grow on their own and the education that goes along with it.
Now, I would like to add that we do have some of our farmers and the producers at our market that if they have excess produce and food at the end of the day, they can go to the renewal center, and the renewal center has a donation area they've got a refrigerator out in the back and canned goods and food from our market and things where those things can be dropped off and donated for our underserved community. So, which is a great resource, and we just have not had any other opportunity right this minute. That's a really great point that you guys bring up, to expand on that a little bit further. But it's definitely something that is in our minds moving forward.
Great. Another question, is the market operated as a 501 nonprofit?
So the market is currently operating as a not-for-profit, and we are in the status, the process of applying for the 501c3. All of the legalities, all of the paperwork, the bylaws have all been put into place, and everything has been filed from our team of lawyers. But we're not quite there yet. It should be any day now. So we're really excited about that, because that's going to help us to do nothing but expand our footprint in what we're already doing.
Great. Is there any overlap in the products that different vendors sell? If so, are there any challenges faced if vendors bring similar goods to market?
Amanda?
So this is where those percentages come into play. So obviously we don't want to have 8 honey vendors. So we have seen over the years what our market can bear. And when we go through with new applications, we look specifically at what we ask, very specifically what products they want to bring to the table. And let's say they're a baker and they have all these baked goods and they also have cinnamon rolls, but we also have 2 other people that do cinnamon rolls. We will say, well, you could bring, these products, but for the cinnamon rolls, we have to say no, because we already have 2 people who bring cinnamon rolls. And we do that kind of across the board for all of our categories, so that we don't want to have a monopoly in any one category, but we also don't want to have an over excess of things either, because we really truly want to set each one of our vendors up for success. And in order to do that, we can't have too many of the same products together. And it's really served our community really well.
Thank you for that. Another question, the community garden concept is interesting. Can you expand on that, knowing that it is in planning stages, but can you tell us more about that community garden?
Absolutely. So we're working with the City of Tomball to make this community garden, and where people will be able to rent out for the year or for the season, rent out plots in a designated area that the city has set aside for us. And we're going to help with some composting with grants and the money that we have been raising for the Tomball with the Tomball Farmers Market, to help really highlight giving an outlet for senior citizens, the underserved people in our community, schools to have their educational programs within the farmers within this community garden. And also the city really wants to help with some rehabilitation type things, kind of very similar to what Background to Breaking Ground is doing with their veterans farm, and working with all of that as a way for our community garden to be a true community garden. And it'll be run by the Tomball Farmers Market, a committee that we put together, as well as members of the surrounding community.
Great, thanks for sharing that. Does anyone else have any other questions? You can put them in the chat now. If not, of course, we will be just having our discussion later. You can ask questions then. Just give it another minute. And I don't see any coming in. So thank you again, Amanda and Brandy. Finally, we're going to be hearing from Constance Mcderby, who is the founder of Food and Bine Time Productions, which is a boutique production company for festivals and other events. And Ms. Mcderby worked with Tomball to plan and execute their Freight Train Food Truck Festival, which was mentioned earlier, and has a lot of experience and valuable insight to share today. So a reminder to type questions in the chat as she goes, and I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Mcderby.
Good morning. We're so happy to be here. I'm so happy to be here. So thanks for including Food and Bine Time Productions. We have had the privilege of working with the City of Tomball for many, many years. We were the original founders of the Hook Wheels Houston or other people would call it Hot Wheels Houston Food Truck Festival, back when food trucks were not readily available to people. They had a lot of governmental regulations from the city. And so we wanted to make food trucks more available to people who were serious foodies. And so we launched that, sold out the very first day within the first 30 minutes. Regrouped. It was a weekend festival, went back at it again the next day. It was even more successful than we ever thought was possible, and the demand was greater than we ever anticipated, which had some challenges, but it ended up with being good problems that I have to deal with. So I'll take that every day. And then we ran that several years until food truck parks in Houston started being more established communication with regard to people being able to know where food trucks were more readily available. So we had our last hurrah. And in the meantime, I'd been talking to the Tomball marketing director, Mike Baxter, for a number of years because I'd worked with him on many other projects in the past. And he kept saying, we need a food truck festival up in Tomball. And I'm like, are you sure? In the hood? I mean, like in a pocket neighborhood, it would be successful. He goes, I promise you, Constance, it will be successful. Let's just give it a try. So we popped it up. And just like Mayor Fagan said earlier, it was a huge success the very first year. And every year we recruit the food trucks. We work with the city on street closures and fire and those types of things. And then we basically managed it, marketed, recruited the food trucks, created a pool patio for people to be able to sample beverages, and just opened up the streets for the economic impact. So that's what our connection is with Tomball. But going back, we were founded in 2002 because when we moved here to Houston from New Orleans, there was not a multi-day, multifaceted culinary and wine event. So not knowing that we didn't know anything at the time, we forged straight ahead, and that's been almost 20 years ago. So we'll play a video now. I'll show you one of the events that we do. So that's one of our partners, is Market Street. We produce Wine and Food Week and just are entering our 18th year with that event. So this is all about bringing back Main Street through community events. So with that, we'll tell a little bit about who we are. Jump into the next slide. So like I said, we were founded in 2002. And we created the first multi-day, multifaceted culinary and wine event in the greater Houston metro. That was in Galveston because Galveston CVB wanted to put more heads in beds, and they had come to learn quickly that alcohol-related tasting events would do that, and the food components that go along with it go hand in hand. So that was the Galveston Food and Vine Time event that we created, and then in 2005 launched Wine and Food Week because the Woodlands wanted something to draw traffic and economic impact in a time that's typically a low, slower season. So that was in June. And we were just really grateful that because of the way that we work with our partners, we have 90% renewal rate of partners and sponsors, that many of which have been with us all 15 years without a break. So everything that we do pulls in nonprofits. So we work with multiple charities in the areas where we work. And we do hyper local full scale event production from concept, event name development, website, everything to the porta potties. I mean, we manage every part of it. We've worked with organizations on a consulting basis where we teach communities or organizations how to do what we do, because in many cases, they already have the infrastructure, they already have the staff, but they maybe don't have the know-how. So that's, we do it all ourselves, and we also teach other people how to do it. So moving forward on why community events, because you have a sense of pride. I mean, you've heard the speakers earlier today about how happy they are and how prideful they are in their community. And when you're doing things in a community, you feel that sense of pride. You know, the businesses there are happy to be able to have something of the caliber. Now, what we do outside of Freight Train Food Truck Festival, everything that we do is ticketed. So it also brings in a manageable audience. We're able to prepare for it. We're able to tell local businesses and enroll them and involve them, but we can tell them what to expect so we can manage the expectations. And then it also showcases the community assets, the parks, the beautification, the charm, the community gardens that Amanda and Brandy are working on, and then bringing in the local nonprofit involvement. It embraces the area in the way that their lifestyle is, so we make it fit. These communities are thrilled to have something brought to them, that they don't have to go to downtown Houston. They don't have to go to yet another event in another community. They want it right there with their own people, but they also want to bring people from outside of the area for that economic impact, but and show them the local talent, the local nonprofits. And then it also gives, kids these days in school, they're required to do community service hours. There's other organizations that really just want to roll up their sleeves and put their hands to work and help with these types of things. And so it also provides volunteer opportunities and service hours for these kids. I mean, these are just the highlights of what it brings into community events, and because it goes a whole lot deeper than that. When I say, when I talk about events, it's like 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. It creates a common, like a big quantum leap in terms of the quality of what people experience, because what you bring, what we bring, what the charity partner brings, it just brings it all together and really gives people the sense of space and place and where they live and what's available to them. So we'll talk a little bit about alcohol tasting events. And so first of all, we don't do Drink Fest. What we do is tasting or orientation, because we have come to learn over the years that it's very much a lifestyle. People are foodies. People they're passionate about their wine. They want to have conversations about that. They meet new people, have new relationships with that. We found the same to be true for craft beer lovers. We do some things with spirits-based events, but it really is more on the craft side. What we find is that ticketed events bring a much higher quality attendee. So we're able to work with larger and more qualified sponsors like Cadillac and Celebrity Cruises and H-GAC, and the list goes quite deep because they know that the people who are attending these types of events know that they have the economic impact that they can create with putting heads in beds and visiting the local businesses and the restaurants as well. So, for example, Wine and Food Week, we produce the second highest amount of room nights in the Woodlands during that week, the second only to their Ironman race that they have there. And the economic impact is pretty impressive, not only in the Woodlands, but in the surrounding areas, like, you know, the neighboring Shenandoah with their hotels available as well. And people stay over, they do brunch, they shop, they come back and visit again because they just get a glimpse of the area and find that they like it, and then it brings a long-term bounce back for future visitors. And it also lets the local businesses engage with people in the community, but also from outside of the community. So we really work that balance of, you know, serving the local community, but also bringing in people who really want to stay. So I'm going to flip over to another video that shows another community event in Katy.
Slip it up and down, slip it right around. Tonight, 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 tonight. Slip it to the left, slip it to the right. Slip it up and down, slip it right around. Tonight, 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 tonight.
Don't let nobody tell you this is not the time to make it happen. Get on the floor. Don't let nobody tell you this is not the time to let it all go. Get on the floor.
Get on the floor.
Listen to the beat of my drum. Can you feel it? Boom, boom, boom. Can you feel it? Feel it? Listen to the beat of my drum. Can you feel it? Boom, boom, boom. Can you feel it? Feel it? Listen to the beat of my drum. Can you feel it? Boom, boom, boom. Can you feel it? Feel it? Listen to the beat of my drum. Can you feel it? Boom, boom, boom. Can you feel it? Feel it? Listen to the beat of my drum. Can you feel it? Boom, boom, boom. Can you feel it? Feel it?
So obviously you could see from that, it was before COVID, those two videos. And so talk about economic impact, when you have a full service event production company and COVID shuts down, we spent a lot of time retooling, rethinking, and trying to see what the best plan is for us moving forward. So some of the events that we've created aren't on our lineup for this year. Like, we had just completed 10 years with Brewmaster's Craft Beer Festival in Galveston. It was rated number 3 beer festival in America by USA Today, not top 10 by Thrillist nationally, and, you know, all the local magazines named us number 1. So that one, we were just getting ready to bring that up to Houston, and so that got tabled, and so it'll be probably 2022 before it gets relaunched. Another event that's not on the lineup, as we had completed 13 years with Zest in the West Houston community, in conjunction with the Houston West Chamber of Commerce. So that one is on pause. And then another one of the larger events that we do is Wine Beer Side Fair in the Side Fair community, and we had again completed over a decade of events there, and so that one we hope to be able to bring back in 2022. Some of the events are inside, some of the events are outside. Outside of Freight Train Food Truck Festival, they are all ticketed. Here's our lineup for this year. We'll do Sip and Stroll spring and fall. We just did 6 sellouts in a row with Sip and Stroll, and we actually had Sip and Stroll during COVID. And small group reservations handled like a restaurant, where you would make a reservation for 6 or a reservation not to exceed 10 and work through a rotation system. So we'll do that one in the spring and the fall. It benefits the Ballard House, which is like a hospitality house, like Ronald McDonald House here in the Katy community, where people can stay for free. We actually launched Nacho Ordinary Tequila tasting tour. And we'll have 4 events throughout the communities this year. We're actually looking for another location. So if your community is interested in hosting one of that, let's have a conversation on that. And I'm sure that Sarah can get everybody my contact information. Platinum Wine Vault is a core event that was within the 10 to 20 events that we typically have during Wine and Food Week. This Wine and Food Week this year was broken apart. Wine and Food Year, as we've had multiple events across the year, but not all within the span of 1 week like it typically is. So that one's coming up in August. That's an inside event, a luxury tasting, a foodies and wine lovers heaven for serious collectors. We did Ladies of the Vine Luncheon. That's a core event with Wine and Food Week at the club at Carlton Woods. October 21st, we'll be able to bring back on a full scale of, we typically do 5,000 people with that event. We're capping it at 3,000 on the Wine Walk at Market Street this year, this October. And then we're able to bring back culinary stars, which we produce for the Houston Chronicle, and that's a top 100 restaurant unveiling event in normal times, since it's along with Allison Cook, the premier food critic for the Houston Chronicle. Unfortunately, she was not able to do a top 100 list because she wasn't able to visit that many restaurants during the COVID shutdown. So we're focusing on culinary superstars this year, people who've done amazing things during the pandemic. Survived during the pandemic was pretty amazing for some, and then next year we'll be able to go back to the unveiling event. And then we actually last year launched a brand new event in Clear Lake Shores for the community there called Why Not? It was a wine night out. So that is what our current lineup is for public events. We also do private events and consulting. So I'm just going to show you a couple of photos of some of the different events that we do. So I think you saw Wine and Food Week is that large photograph at the top. And you can see from the photo to the right, it's a small cup. So you can see it's small tasting. So again, we're very controlled, manageable crowds. People get a chance to discover something new. If they don't like it, they can dump it out. That's what we encourage. Try something else new. And you'll see through the photos that all walks of life come, all colors, all backgrounds, all ages. Some of the events that we do are family friendly. Most of them are ticketed adult only events. And that way we can better prepare for it. The photo at the bottom was a photo of the VIP tent at Wine Beer Sci Fair. Moving on to the next one, you'll see from the photo in the middle, the different sponsor tents from outside displays. We always bring in music, other types of entertainment, local artisan vendors, local businesses. You can see from the photos down at the bottom and over to the right, the inside related events. That one in particular is the Wine Rendezvous Grand Tasting and Chef Showcase. That's a grand finale event for Wine and Food Week, draws 1,000 to 1,500 attendees, 60 chefs, 500 wines, and the National Water for Crystal Chef of Chef Awards competition. Dress up, look pretty, go out for an amazing date night right here. And then moving forward, here just gives you a little snapshot of this past spring's Katie Sip and Stroll. Again, we relaunched it right after we were allowed to do it. We capped it at 1,200. We actually went over by 3, and we moved it to a new venue, and that worked out great. It sold out 5 days in advance, so attendees knew what to expect. We knew how to manage it. We did 13,000 food sampling servings from 25 food stations. We had 576 beer tastings, 200 bottles of wine, 4 spirits, and we had a spirits patio in that one. So you'll see that people were having a great time. If people were comfortable going to a restaurant, they were comfortable going to Sip and Stroll. And we're going to increase the attendance to that one up to 1,500 as we enter the fall, because we can manage those crowds, but we also control the attendance because we want to control the quality of the experience as well. We don't want people to be stuck in big long lines and just not being able to make the most of the experience. So that's a little bit of a recap on that one. If you'll look to the next slide, this is Wine and Food Week pre-COVID. So we had 51 chefs, 39 culinary contributors. So those are restaurants that aren't chef-driven restaurants, but they still want to showcase their food. 10,000 attendees, 400 cases of wine, 52 sponsors and in-kind donors, 7 days, 11 events. We did the 18 food judges to do blind tastings of the food for the Water for Crystal Chef of Chef Awards and the big Water for Crystal trophy and $5,000 cash prize. We had 223 wineries and 23 experts fly in to be able to present their products. So it's again, that one is complete opposite than what you would find at a Katie Sip and Stroll or what you find at Tomball Freight Train Food Truck Festival, but that's what fits that area and it fits the goals for that area. So the demographics of that event are on this page. The breakout of, a little bit more female than male. Our core is 35 to 54. They're in their prime earning years. 49% were outside of the woodlands for wine and food week. 51% was from the woodlands. And I'll just give you a little history on that. When we first started that event, maybe only 10% were from the woodlands. So most of it was coming from people from outside of the area spending money in the area. Now, those figures only flipped and it didn't go down. It's only because as people from the woodlands and the surrounding area, Spring and Conroe, found out more and more about the event, then they joined in and it grew our overall attendance. We had that year we had 8,644 total people in at the various events throughout the year. But as you can see, most of them earn between 100,000 and 200,000 a year, with another 19% or 200,000 plus. And so again, that can make a lot of economic impact in that area. And it shows a list of 53 cities from across Texas and then 3% from outside of Texas. So that definitely helps with commerce in the area. So leading into our last slide, really what we do is about building legacy with signature events, building loyalty by having a great experience for the vendors, for the sponsors, for the attendees, for the nonprofits. So it builds that overall brand for a signature event from the area, which builds economic impact. And this is the importance of community events. So I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Thank you so much, Constance. We have one question. If I wanted to create an event to happen in our downtown area, how far in advance would the planning discussions begin?
Great question. We usually work a year to 18 months in advance. That allows us, especially if we're stepping into a new community, it allows us time to go in and get the lay of the land, see what infrastructure the city has, see who the players are, see what the community embraces, and then create what is suitable for that area. And we hold their hands, all along the way.
Great. I don't see any other questions in the chat right now. Feel free to put your questions in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand and ask those live. Also, I'll reiterate that you are looking for another location for the tequila tastings. That
Yes, we
could be
are.
a good opportunity for someone. I did hear that one.
Yeah, that one's been that's been fun to do. And that's an inside event. It's very much controlled, because a lot of times when they hear tequila, people might think of a big old margarita festival, and that's not what we do. We actually have craft tequilas that we serve in communion cups, little crystal communion cup, the clear ones. So people can go through, try it, be there with a brand ambassador, and learn about the differences of the different succulents. I mean, it's not all about agaves, it's sotals and some other things. So it's just the learning journey that goes along with it. But again, that's a lifestyle group that wants to go out and learn.
We have another question. Do you work with cities or fundraising organizations?
Both. Yeah, we work with charities, cities, chambers, and individuals.
Great. So we have Prairie View's interested. And then another question, how large is the tequila tastings? How many in attendance?
So it depends on the venue. When just coming out of COVID, we did 100 in Katy. That was our first one. I'll take that back, because we actually launched Not Your Ordinary Tequila Tasting as a Friday night kickoff event for Brewmaster's Craft Beer Festival to give a 3-day experience for the attendees. And so there we had, I think, close to 400 people, because that's what the space would allow. That was at Moody Gardens. The second one we did this year, we did at the Woodlands Country Club, and that was 225. But it can manage, depending on the space, anywhere between 200 and 500 is a good number. Beyond that, the number of engagements that the tequila ambassadors have is an important part of the concept. So we want to make sure we manage lines. But we also have a long waiting list of tequila companies that want to get into the events. And so we can get more depth of exhibitors. And we also have food at that event too. We do a nacho tequila, a nacho bar, a gourmet nacho bar, and then we invite area restaurants to come in and feature something like tequila infused shrimp or nitro ice cream made with tequila or those types of things. So it's all thematic, but we work, part of it is like traveling roadshow. So we have the assets, we have content, the contacts, and we can bring them to you, but we also balance that out with the local restaurants and other exhibitors in the community.
We have 2 other great questions. The first one is, what kinds of organizations, or what do organizations need to have in place to successfully partner with your kind of business for an event in public spaces or streets?
So if we do it in public spaces, the relationships with the city, kind of like what we do with the City of Tomball, is, the fire department and the police department and the Parks and Rec department, and it depends on what space it is, to be able to control the streets, especially if it's a ticketed event. So we have to work through that. And then also, depending on the style of the event, bringing in, the different school organizations, whether it's the football team or whether it's the service leagues, those types of things, to be able to work in advance and give those groups a way to be able to use the community service hours. And trust me, there's a lot to do, whether it's hauling out water barrels or helping hang up signs or anything. We'll transform blank landscape to a festival. So those are the types of partnerships that we need to have in place. And then of course, we need an underwriting sponsor or someone who, organization that has the funding, because doing these festivals, they're not inexpensive. Bands are expensive, fencing, stages, there's a whole lot that goes into it. So those are the type of partnerships we need to have.
Great. And then another question, you said you produce events, but also teach others how to do it. What would that look like for a community?
So it would be a sit down information gathering conversation to begin with, to find out, if what they have in mind is, with that, if we have the infrastructure or the know-how to do it. We know how to do festivals, but we have to also, we don't want to just be a traveling roadshow. We really want to embrace the community and make the event a signature legacy event for the areas in which we work. So just, just a general conversation and a visit and a tour around the area. And then we can kind of talk about, based off of what their thoughts are, how that builds out. We'll help build the original P&L. We'll tell them, what they need to do with regard to who does what inside the city or inside the organization. And then venues really are the hardest thing, is in finding the right place that has parking or overflow or no ants, or not in the middle of July for an outside festival, which we helped an organization with a couple of weeks ago. But people came, it was 90 degrees, and they came out and watched it and raised money for 6 charities. So that was a good thing.
Great. I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat. If anyone has those, drop them in now. Thank you all for your questions so far. then the next, we'll open this, the room up for our roundtable portion of the event. So this is going to be an interesting experiment virtually, but we'd really like to hear from you about what you're doing in this world that we've built up a little bit today through the lens of Tomball. So we encourage each of you to share your experiences starting farmers markets, or if you haven't started a farmers market, what's been challenging for you. Same thing with food trucks, regulating food trucks, otherwise interacting with food entrepreneurs, doing your own events and festivals. So you can ask any of our wonderful speakers today follow-up questions, or also ask questions of each other. And I do encourage everyone, if you'd like to turn on your video, feel welcome to. You're not required to, of course. But yeah, I'll open it up if anyone wants to start with any comments, and then we can ask some more specific questions.
I'd like to start. And it was very informative today, and I really appreciate it. In our community, in Southwest Houston, what we're finding is because of the different ethnicities in our community, that people are growing their food in their backyards and providing it to restaurants and grocery stores, and they're doing a lot of that because they can't find their particular food in the in the grocery departments. So that's the only disincentive there is our deed restrictions. I mean, they're growing, much of their spices and much of their produce, and even having some of their livestock in their backyards, and of course that presents a problem, and it's difficult for first generations. But that's I want to make sure that's clear. And our farmers markets are mostly filled with farmers that are in our community. I just suggest that the coverage, the 150-mile radius, really is doesn't conform with the opportunity of making sure that we spend our money locally. You see, that 150-mile radius is a wide brim, and one of the biggest problems we have is economic downturn, and being able to survive economic downturns. So we must be able to start spending more of our money in our communities, keeping that money in our communities more than 30 days or more. So I would hope that we could reduce that 150-mile radius that was just discussed to something in 25 miles or 30 miles, because the 150-mile radius gets you out of our community. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Does anyone have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a really interesting discussion, and I think that it's really important that we, first of all, Sylvester, thank you so much for bringing that up. I mean, Amanda, can you talk to the justification about the 150 miles and why? I know that we're in a rural, no, excuse me. What does it mean whenever you're further away from the city? I always get those two backwards. Is it rural or urban?
We're urban. We're like suburban type area. I do know that with Urban Harvest, they have they also run a similar footprint to us, and they bring in farmers from 180 miles out, and it sounds like it's a really lot. It sounds like it's a very far distance, but like for Tomball Farmers Market, that only gets us to the east side of Austin and the south side of Dallas, and it makes and it also limits so that we're not taking in people from Louisiana. We actually, so for when you're trying to think about your own farmer's market, my biggest recommendation to you is we polled our consumers. We polled our community and asked them what they wanted. And we continue to do that, to ask them, you know, do you want us to expand so that we can get more citrus stuff? Because like for Houston anyway, citrus doesn't grow very well here. We're too hot. We don't get that cold snap generally that citrus plants need. And so we're limited on that. So just think about your area and what grows and produces organically in your area, what your ground can sustain, and think about those things. We do have several of our farmers who are backyard growers. We've got one called we had one called Backyard Bounty, and we also have one of our farm vendors who's a florist. She grows all her flowers natively in her backyard, and she brings those to the market. And so there are things that are in place with the Texas Department of Agriculture to keep those, to make sure that those regulations, that people are following those things. But mostly Texas state agriculture is centered around the really big farms. And so some of that would fall on your farmer's market for you to decide what you're going to allow. And one of the things that we do to help in this is that when we do farm visits, they have to tell us what their growing practices are, and they actually have to make that available to all of our patrons at our farmers market. Does that help answer your question at all, Sylvester?
It does partly, and it does partly, because let me just say that my company is Houston One Voice, and we focus on trying to make municipalities more economically resilient and sustainable. And what we do know is that the key to that is making sure that the dollar stays in your community at least 30 days or more, to ensure that you can mitigate any economic downtowns. And economic downturns, what we believe, are the reasons why, you know, cities have their main streets that are closing. So I do understand your point, and I know I agree with you, but from that what we have to do, whatever we need to do to make sure that we are economically resilient, and that's my suggestion to you as well. My company also helps municipalities with flooding, and it is our company is a partnership with University of Houston and Rice University, and bring those universities to and their research to the communities. So thank you for that response, and I hope you understand where I'm coming from.
Absolutely, thank you so much.
Sylvester, this is Gerald Rosnowski. I'm a mayor of Lake Jackson, and so we're a population of about 30,000 people. But first of all, I want to say your comment about keeping the dollars in the community for 30 days or more is something I've preached for a long time, because again, you get a small community and everybody wants a big box restaurant to come into the area. And, you know, the money from the big box restaurant comes in and leaves the area very quickly. You know, the only money that stays there is for the waiters and the cooks and all that, so forth. And you know that that's not a lot of dollars. It does sustain, you know, people's welfare for a short period of time, but it doesn't really help the community a whole lot. But what I want to jump off into is the reason why I was asking some of the questions about the food truck court concept is that we have a business that they had a brick and mortar business, and they are moving out of the brick and mortar and going to food trailer because the brick and mortar was too expensive. Our people in our downtown area, the owners of the businesses, buildings, have, because of market change and taxes and all so forth, whatever, and properties are being valued at a different level, they've decided, that their rent is below, or their leases are below the new market value. And so they're raising their rent to these businesses that have been in place for a long period of time. And these businesses are finding, they're struggling. They're just coming out of COVID. And now their rent is going up because, their landlord figures they can make more money. And so they're leaving brick and mortar. And I don't understand these landlords that are willing to lose an existing, leasee for a few more dollars. But anyway, that's their decision. Going back to the food truck. So they're wanting to open up a food truck court. And the challenge we have is that none of our zoning allows any of that type of operation. Now, we do allow food trucks to be in the city, but you have to have an agreement with a property owner to park in that parking lot and to operate. And they also have to have a letter commitment with an established brick and mortar business like another restaurant to be able to discharge their gray water and so forth. So we do allow them to happen. So this food court is a new concept. I like the concept. I want it to be successful, but again, we're going to have to work with our planning commission to come up with what kind of guidelines we're going to put on these people. And that's why I asked the questions about parking and so forth. There's things that we're going to require is that they're going to have to be kind of like an RV setup. A trailer park setup is that when they pull in, they're going to have full hookups. We're not going to have any generators running and so forth. And so we're going to expect it to be a nice facility. And I was just trying to grab some ideas from you guys, from your setup on what kind of guidelines or what kind of requirements y'all put on your operation there. I like your operation. It looks very clean. I'll have to go visit it to see it and in person. But just any kind of guidance you can give us on that'd be great. Especially from the city side.
Oh,
Hey, Mayor.
so it's
Go ahead.
Gretchen. Oh, I see my husband's up there. He's trying to compete, talk with me. Hey, Mayor, don't recreate the wheel. Why don't we just send
Right.
you what we did?
Right.
I can send you our ordinance on how we did it. And, we put a lot of thought into the way that we had it run. And exactly what you're saying, we set them up so they're all self-contained. Most of ours now, I think all of ours now are actually hard piped into the sewer instead of the hose that they take when they're mobile, because those get cracked in the sun and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, if you send me your email address,
Yep.
then I'll see what we can send over to you from what we had to do, because we had to change a lot of things that we didn't even think about, stuff that staff didn't even know was still in our ordinances, just kind of the way things developed over the years.
Well, the other reason why parking is important is because where they want to put their facility at, it's not in an area where people would normally go to park and walk and shop. So they'd have to specifically be going to that area to go to the food trucks. We'd much rather, we could set something up like this in our downtown area where people would come and shop and eat and stuff, but there's no real estate that would enable that to happen unless you start closing down streets, and that's not going to happen, on a daily basis. So,
Right.
So anyway, so that's why those things, we're a city of trees, and so we have a landscaping requirement. So it's like, what are you going to put in for a landscaping requirement for a trailer park?
We have a
for food
landscaping
truck.
requirement too.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
In
Anyway,
fact, when we
I'll
built
PM
403,
you.
my husband said, "Who did this?
Okay.
Who made these trees a requirement?" I said, "Oh, that was me."
I saw a food truck park in Round Rock or Georgetown. They're so close together, like in Round Rock or Georgetown and Texas, north of Austin. And it was a drive-through. There was no parking. You drove through, picked up your meal and drove out. And boy, it was well done. Didn't have a lot of cars backed up, but there wasn't much need for parking, or people didn't have tables for you to eat. You just picked your food up and left.
And the
Yeah,
other
here in
thing,
the city of Stafford, we're in a similar situation where we're looking to do something like a food truck park because we have struggled with our current ordinance in terms of parking. So for example, for ours, they're allowed anywhere a restaurant can be. So that's pretty much anywhere. But then we have a minimum parking requirement for them of 5 spots, and they can't take up wherever they're at their parking count either. And so for a food truck court to have its own parking requirement, that would be something that's interesting, because right now we have one that's very well established. They added 6 tables, which per their parking regulations would require 14 spots. So that doesn't really make sense for the type of traffic that they have, but that's how our parking ordinance is right now. So I would love to see those ordinances as well from the city of Tomball, of how you all did that too, because right now there is a lot of other things too in our ordinance that we're like, why is it like that? Like, for example, our mobile food truck ordinance was designed by the police department. Because that's where the health department used to be under. So, a lot of stuff in there doesn't have the full picture. So, but no, I know me and my health officer, who I believe is on the line as well, we'd love to see what y'all did.
Awesome. All right. Send me your contact info too.
Thank you, everyone. I'll just mention that, well, Andrea Tintillo has put a couple of handouts in the chat that have some considerations for farmers markets and food trucks. Not the specifics, but just some questions you might be thinking about. Yeah, I also will say that one thing that I think is great about the Tomball food truck park is that community element, which of course you don't necessarily get with a drive-through food truck park. And there's the parking consideration, but it's great that y'all have so many options for people to stay and mingle and hang out in your space.
And that's very important to us as opposed to the drive-through, because we don't sell any food. Here at 403, we sell beer, wine, margaritas, iced tea, sodas, that kind of thing. We sell no food, and the trucks sell no drinks. So they have to have us too. But that's where we get our. So we have to deal with TABC, and the trucks deal with the health department more than we do. But we also have to be. We have 2 different health department permits: one to operate the drinks, and one also to operate the commissary. So we have double that we have to take care of on that.
Gretchen, at your standalone building that's behind you there in your photo, y'all just do beverages there? Y'all do food in that building also, or is it just beverages?
Nope, just beverages. We don't want to compete with the trucks.
Yeah, I've seen that, the concept you have there. I've seen that a few other places, and I really like that concept. It makes sense for a business like you've got there and stuff. So that's really great. The other thing is the reason why the food truck court interests me also is that, again, we in Lake Jackson, we have our downtown area that the city's been spending millions of dollars to revitalize, and we're on phase 3 of 4 phases. And again, the idea we had was we were going to redevelop our downtown area and enable that to, again, increase walkability in a place where people come and spend a day or whatever, and the downtown area to shop and have a meal and have a drink and stuff like that. And so we were hoping that would be like a location for small business, an incubator for businesses to come in and get started. And as they grow larger, they may move out into a larger facility, in the city and expand out. The challenge we just mentioned about is that as we've redeveloped the downtown area, the building owners have seen the benefit of all the investment that the city has put in there. So again, they're raising their rent and they're driving these startup businesses out of the area, which is totally negative to what we wanted to do. So whenever I start looking at a food court concept like you've got there, as you explained, you had some trucks that came in and they've grown their business and they've grown their notoriety and they've gone to brick and mortar. That's, again, it may take us moving to a food court concept to be able to do what we wanted to achieve with the downtown revitalization. Again, the investment we're making in downtown is extremely valuable and very good, but we're not getting everything that we wanted out of it. So it's.
Oh, that's
again,
a
that's
shame
why-
about the rents. Yeah, because
Yeah.
we're doing the same thing with our downtown. We're getting ready to improve the alleyways, and it's been a vision for the last 10 years to do something with our downtown and make it a destination. And everything, the farmers market brings people on Saturdays, then they come over here and eat, and it's that synergy that really works that well. So I hope we actually in our Old Town area on parking several years ago, we did away with parking requirements in Old Town. And that was a little 4-block area where there just wasn't. I mean, it was old houses that were, 100 years old. There was no place to park. People had to park on the street or they had to go to a parking lot that the city built somewhere. We actually leased a little spot from BNSF Railroad that we turned into a parking lot. I don't know how much we even pay for it anymore, but we have to pay them something every year for our parking lot to be on their property. But that's something we actually took the parking off Main Street. Well, we did not, TxDOT did. And the businesses, of course, on Main Street weren't happy about it. But it's funny now, 5 years later, nobody even thinks about it anymore. Everybody's figured out how to get and walk where they need to go.
And I think they made more parking, opened up a little bit more parking in our area. And for the farmers market, we have such a walkable area. We're right within walking distance of all these local shops and local restaurants that are truly local. That has really helped them grow. And again, I want to reiterate that a lot of our vendors that we have an awful lot of prepared food that's on site, and artisan type chefs who have their businesses and they get their start in Old Town Tomball, and those people have eventually outgrown us. They just get so busy. We've got one, we're going to lose them pretty soon because their business has been so incredible. Flower House Bakery is going to have to move to a brick and mortar soon. They're just outgrowing us at an exponential rate. They did amazingly well during COVID. Their business really took off during that time period. So I would encourage you to consider the farmers markets as a way to help these businesses grow and continue to grow your footprint, while maybe you try to figure out what to do about your landlords that are raising the rates on the brick and mortar people who are coming in. That just seems very counterproductive to what our heart is for the community.
Well, Sylvester, you mentioned about on the farmers markets going out so far. The farmer markets that we've been able to, we have one that's they were monthly and then they went to twice a month. But the challenge that they have, and you would think in our area we'd have a lot of local farmers.
Yeah.
And we really don't. And so we have to go out really far, or the person that's running the farmers market really has to go out far to find, farmers that, do have produce that they can bring in. The challenge that they have again is that they don't have the manpower to do it on every weekend. And, these farmers, they've got to put they got to pick product every day and they've got to put it out on the shelf. And just because they have a slot at a market here in Lake Jackson, once or twice a month, it really doesn't do them a lot of good. They need a place where they can go on a weekly basis to get rid of their, to sell their produce. And so that's the challenge that we're having with our farmers market here. When we built our town's one of our pavilions downtown, our hope is that we wanted a farmer's market to come and use it. And we were going to think that we as a city was going to have to manage it. And when this person came up and said, well, I'll manage it and I'll run it and so forth, we thought it was going to be a great deal, but it works, but it's not really the holy grail that we were looking for. So again, still trying to think out of the box. Yeah.
Well, one of the ways that you could overcome that, we believe, is there are many citizens that have markets and the like, and within your community, that within that 25-mile radius, that those farmers that are further out could work with, that are right there in your community. They could partner together and sell their goods at the farmers market, and those individuals that are your residents would keep the money within your community.
Yeah.
Well, and that's
Well,
where
I was
concepts like mine come in.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Ma'am?
And that's where a concept like mine would come in. So maybe if actually physically bringing someone to a location is not working, then perhaps what you do is bring it to them a little bit more. And that's what I had to do, because while I wasn't in a food desert, I was in an area to where people weren't able to travel half an hour each way on a Saturday to go back and forth. So there's a lot that you can do. There are a lot of farmers down there in the South. Sylvester mentioned that you have like backyard gardening. I mean, there are ways to look at it in a way that could definitely, be catered to Lake Jackson.
Yeah, I was actually looked into it in the past. Is again, we have backyard farmers. I mean, I've raised vegetables and stuff in my backyard too, and and what you find out real quick is all your tomatoes come in at one time. Yeah. And there's only so many salads you can make and so many that you can put up and stuff like that. So it's kind of like looking at a concept where you have a location to where and maybe the city helps with it, I don't know, but where the local neighborhood farmer, backyard farmer can bring their produce and and say it's a city and you have a setup to where they come in and we'll buy your produce from you and then we'll sell it to the public or whatever, do something with it. And but anyway, that's way out of the box, and I'm always thinking out of the box, but that's just a concept that just listening to you guys, it's just in the back of my mind is thinking that may be something that we need to flush out and see if there's a possibility for that. But
now
again,
oops, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm fine.
We are independent of the City of Tomball. We have a working relationship with them, but we're independent of them completely and totally. So, and this didn't happen for us overnight. We've been around since 2008, and we started with just 6 vendors. And then just as it grew, that people learned that we had true farmers markets, that we had true local farmers, it really kind of grew and expanded and allowed us, because remember, we keep our market only as large as that 51% farmers, and we have seasonal farmers. We have one gentleman who that's all he does is tomatoes and peppers, so he can only come like 4 months out of the year if his stuff has done okay in his farm. So, and that changes as well. So, but as far as yes, our farmers pack weekly, but we have seen that they pick all week long, because that's what farmers do, and they work all week long, and they're able to still bring that local produce to the market and sell out. We have a lot of our farmers who sell out by 10 o'clock, 10:30 at the bare minimum every single weekend. And we have, at least depending on the season, we have up to 26 farmers every weekend.
Yeah. Well, you do something very interesting that I'm going to recommend here in my community, and that is the community gardens. You're leasing plots in the community gardens. Well, see that becomes a local product, and I think that's really interesting. I hadn't thought of it before, but to lease plots to let folks grow their own product and then sell it within the community.
That's why I sent Amanda a note about it and stuff. I'm interested in it because whenever I traveled in my when I really worked as an employee for a large corporation, I spent a lot of time in Europe, and I noticed real quick that in a lot of European communities is that, you know, the where they live at in town, they don't have any land. And but there's outside of not far outside the large areas where housing's at, they set aside property, and people can go in and they rent a section of property, and they put their little bitty utility building there, you know, to be able to store their hose and all that kind of equipment they need for a day-to-day basis. But that's where they do their own personal farming, you know, and stuff. So again, we've got some we tried that here many years ago, and it just didn't it happened and it dwindled away. So I think I think there's a chance to revive that and do something here again in our city with some of the land.
I think it's become a lot more important for people to be able to do that. And, you know, as the cities grow, you have less, you know, ability. The backyards are smaller, so you can't grow as many things. And we're doing this community garden with the City of Tomball, but they are not required in any way, shape, or form to sell it at our market. There is not going to be, they have the option to, and they will have to go through the exact same vetting process that our other farmers go through in order to be a farmer at our farmers market. But we're really trying to emphasize being able to utilize this for, you know, fresh food for nursing homes and our, you know, displaced residents who don't have access to fresh food. You know, they might, McDonald's dollar hamburger might be their meal of the week. And so we really want to try to give back to that and also teach the next generation why it's important to grow, and giving those area schools the opportunity to learn how to grow and have that be part of their curriculum as well, which I think a lot, at least here, a lot of our schools are doing an awful lot of that. They are bringing that back into the, bringing back that to the area.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. We have a large Asian community where I live here in Houston, and I've not seen it anywhere else. But in this community, all of the temples, all of the churches, all grow their own food. They grow their own produce and sell that produce. You don't see them at the farmers market. They grow their produce and they sell it to the local restaurants.
Yes, we do that a lot too.
But if you ever go to their tea houses, you'll see them in their backyards or in the compound, just large plots of produce that they're.
That's amazing.
Growing.
Yep,
that is wonderful. Absolutely amazing.
It is.
Sarah, I have a question that might be a little bit of a change of pace, or like go back to something that we talked about earlier. This is Andrea from H-GAC, by the way, and it's from the farmers market. So maybe from the food truck folks too. That you've mentioned that people started out at the farmers markets or started out with the food trucks and have gone to a brick and mortar store. Is that the goal, or is that like a byproduct, or is that a selling point? I mean, what's up with that?
So everyone has a different goal and a different mission. One of the things that we try to do is we try to create a space where there's traffic being driven to it. And one of the things that we have learned, and I'm sure Mayor Fagan can also mirror, is we have created a food culture. I mean, we have partnered with foodie groups on Facebook. I mean, we're all present. We're all very active in this Facebook community. You know, Mayor Fagan is out there, Amanda's out there, I'm out there, and we literally built an entire culture around this food. And a lot of their goals for this commercial or cottage kitchen vendor, a lot of their goals is to have a brick and mortar. That's kind of their dream. So we help to foster them, not only help them grow, but we also promote them. And it's just, I mean, what are the Facebook groups? Tomball Foodie, and then Nick's Local Eat. I mean, we have like an entire subculture that has literally given these people the opportunity to have a shop.
And is it the goal, my personal my servant heart, yes, absolutely. I would love every single one of our current vendors that we have to become so successful that they outgrow us, because then it gives us more opportunity to help new people come in and do the exact same all over again. We have really strived and really set up our whole resources and processes around from our website to showing small businesses, this is the permits and these are the licenses and these, the sales permits and things that you need in order to get started. And we offer them advice on what products would work well in a farmer's market, what we've seen kind of really doesn't go as well as I'll give the example. We have one gentleman who came in and was talking to Brandy and our predecessor about he was tired of working in the business community and wanted to do something more. He wanted more. So he asked the ladies what we didn't have at the farmer's market and what we needed. And they said, well, we don't have anybody who sells mushrooms. And so he went home and he took that information and he went and researched how to grow mushrooms. And now he sells mushrooms. He just expanded to a third warehouse where he grows these mushrooms in a controlled setting. And he grows, I think, like 10 different varieties of mushrooms. And he not only services our market, but other markets. He sells to local restaurants and has been mentioned in the Houston Chronicle and other foodie groups and everything. And so it's just, we are absolutely, like Brandy says, we're a byproduct of them being able to move and expand their growth in their business. And we really, really want that. We are really passionate about the community and about helping these small businesses grow, including our farmers.
And most importantly, he was able to quit his job. So our vendors that we attract are people that are tired of working for corporate America. They too want to bring back Main Street. They too want the mom and pop. And that's what they build, and we give them the opportunity to build that.
Thanks for that question, Andrea. We also have a question in the chat that I think is for the farmers market folks. Is there a way to tell what the percentage of farmers to crafters is prior to a visit? Is it typically posted somewhere?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Can you tell me, read it again? I'm sorry.
So the percentages that you have for your vendors, is that posted somewhere?
We have it internally. Without a doubt, it's posted everywhere that we are 51% farmers, farm to non-farmer ratio. And we just know, so we have a craft side and we know we can only sustain, I think the number is between 8 and 11% of our farmers market can consist of crafters. So obviously we break that up even further into, we know we can only sustain 2 jewelry people. We know we can only sustain 2 to 3 wood people. And so on and so forth, things like that. So those numbers allow us to make sure that there's not, that while there's not a monopoly, that these people actually get to have the opportunity to sell and do well in their business. This is also where that our fill-in people come in. Instead, used to be we had a really long wait list. Once we were full, we didn't let anybody else in. But now our fill-in list allows us to take those percentages, and where we have holes, we can add, like if I only have 2 wood people, but I can technically have 3 that sell different kinds of wood products, then I can have that fill-in step in and have the ability to come and start creating their footprint and moving forward. Same thing with our bath and body. And we know what the market can bear, and we see if they're not doing well enough, then, oh, we need to back off from having 3 tamale people, such and such like that. So we really just kind of keep a pulse on what our market can bear.
Yeah, thank you. Would anyone else like to chime in? We have a couple minutes left here for our discussion. I'd just like to open it up. Any questions about your amendments to your food truck regulations, questions about what we've been talking about so far?
We have a question in the chat.
Oh, okay.
It's what percentage of people come to the farmer's market or probably the food truck park too, because they drive by and see it versus intentionally making that trip. Is it on a busy road, or do people go there on purpose? I know I'm going to expand on this question. The first food truck park I ever went to was because it was in walking distance of my hotel. So I think location is probably a big part of that. So hopefully you guys can speak to that.
Yeah, from the food truck side, yes, location is key. We are right on Main Street, which is also where the farmers market is. We're probably 5, 6, 7 blocks apart from each other. But yeah, it's on 2920, which is our main street, which is a major thoroughfare. And we get people that come into 403 and say, "Oh my gosh, I've driven by here 100 times and I meant to stop." And we said, "Well, what made you stop today?" "I don't know. I just saw that umbrella right there by the street, so it made me stop." So it's very interesting why the people come, but they do because they see it. When we have live music, when we're having karaoke, when they see people here, when we have large groups of high school kids here or birthday parties, that always gets the attention of people. And so on the farmers market side, y'all tell them.
Yeah, so again, we're right on 2920, literally in the heart of Old Town Tomball. And so, but even so, people who have lived in Tomball 20 years have come by the farmer's market and come by the information booth. I get it almost weekly. You know, how often are you here? Is this a weekly thing? Is this a monthly thing? We've never been here before. I'm like, "Oh, how long have you lived in Tomball?" "All my life. I live 2 blocks away." And I'm like, "How?" But we get an awful lot of people who come as far as Katy. And so we have a lot of people from Cypress. That's one of the polls that we do when we do a yearly poll for our patrons, asking them questions and asking them what they would like and what's driving them to the market. Keeping our polls on our patrons is where they're coming from. And right now, I think 40% actually come from Cypress area. We only have 21% who, interestingly enough, come from actually Tomball, and everybody else is throughout the rest of our metro area. So we have really become an area, like Brandy said earlier, we're a foodie hotspot, and people know that they can come here and they can shop, and it's not your chain restaurants and things like that, at least not in Old Town Tomball. And it's really helped with our foot traffic and everything.
One thing, Amanda, on that, in our Old Town area, and now they're even starting to consider down where we are as part of the Old Town. That was a very, very concentrated effort to put big box stores where they are and to keep the mom and pops. I mean, that's something we've been working on for years to make sure that those businesses would thrive and people walking. We have it here on our side of the tracks. People walk to 403 all the time. We're seeing a lot of young people come back, graduated from school here. They're coming back. They're buying these little houses. They're fixing them up, and they're walking over here to do karaoke with their kids. And it happens at all of our restaurants. People they want to walk. They want to be outside.
We have another question in the chat that I'll just ask here. We're winding down, but this is a great question. As oversight for food trucks and farmers markets, what information and how do you collect it from trucks and vendors?
Well, from the food truck side, the information that we have is, of course, whatever their personal information, their contact info. We don't have as many people as the farmers market does. We deal with basically 7 families that own our food trucks. So, I mean, we know their tax ID numbers. We do not get information from them on what their income is. We don't take a percentage of their income or anything like that. So we don't. But most of them will tell you if they've had a good day. They'll tell you how much they made because they want to share it. They're excited. They want you to know when it's a good day, and they want you to know when it's not a good day. Did that kind of answer it? Because I'm reading the same chat. I didn't know what kind of info they were thinking about.
So for us, yes, we have when you go to our website, we work with a company called MarketWorks. where it automatically does our application process for us, and we have it all set up. So our incoming vendors, and when we do renewals, the vendors can go on that site and they can input all their information. They can give us our business liability insurance, because you're required to have that to work as a farmer's market. And they can upload their sales tax IDs for those who need it. And also their health department requirements that they need, whether they're, selling hot food on site or prepared food on site. And we'll also require, we're going to be in the next couple of weeks adding food trucks, rotating food trucks in ourselves as well. And they'll be required to give us those permits as well. This way we keep everything above ground. And when the health department comes out, and they come out every other weekend, if there's a question, we have a backup for our vendors to say, here, you say you don't have it, but here they do have it. And we really try to keep up to date with both the health department and, again, with the Texas State Agriculture on anything that our vendors may need. Does that answer your question, Jennifer, I hope?
And I was just going to add, we also get all that same information. We know when the trucks are going to come up for their health inspections. That's on our calendar. So we start working with them a month ahead of time to make sure that they know any of the health department requirements and changes. We go to any training that the health department has, we go to it. We see the same inspectors that they see at the farmers market. So we do get all that kind of information. And the same here, they have to have $1 million of liability insurance to be here. They have to name us as the food truck park. We have to be named as additional insured on their policies. That's obviously because Mike and I are insurance agents. And we need to make sure that they do have a sales tax permit and that kind of thing.
All right, I'm just monitoring the chat here. Andrea, help me out if I'm getting some direct and to everyone messages. So, but I think we also are just about at 12. We have a couple announcements to make for the, just to close this out. But I like, I think Josh asked what brings people to Old Town Tomball. We have some people answering what in the chat, that question. But before we close out, I just want to leave you with a couple of announcements from H-GAC. First, you may have seen, especially if you're involved with economic development, that the Economic Development Administration just a week ago today released their new funding challenges with the American Rescue Plan Act funding. So that's $3 billion in funding. Those 6 different notices of funding opportunities are posted online now. And H-GAC and the Gulf Coast Economic Development District will be hosting a webinar on August 10th. That'll be at 2 p.m. And in the chat, I believe that Andrea will put the link for registration to that webinar. And you can also contact Jillian Donato, who's with H-GAC, if you have questions or would like some technical assistance on an application to the EDA. And then also I'd like to mention that our Livable Centers program workshop will be on August 20th. It's called Elements of Placemaking. So it'll be all about placemaking. That might be of interest to many of you too. And if you'd like more information on that, you can contact Anita Holman. Her email is also on the screen. And Andrea will put the link to register for that workshop as well in the chat. With that, I'd just like to thank our presenters again, Mayor Fagan, Amanda Kelly, Brandy McCrill, and Constance Mcderby for presenting today, and thank you to the H-GAC staff who worked many hours to get this event together. All of the presentations will be available online, and we'll send a follow-up email with a link to that website. And we'll also include a survey for any feedback that you might have for us on this event. And the link for that survey will, I think, be in the chat right now.
It's already there.
Great. And if you have any questions, you can contact me. My email's on the screen. Thank you again, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.